If someone had told me a routine consult would start with a withheld name and a rush fee, I would have shrugged. Imagine organizing someone else's dream wedding, only to find out the bride is the same woman who shattered your heart 7 years ago. Natalie Carter was sure she buried that hurt so deep it would never see daylight again. She was wrong. Before we dive into this emotional roller coaster, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The phone rang at exactly 9 a.m. I should have known that call was going to change everything. I sat staring at my laptop, the cursor blinking like it was mocking me. Just another Tuesday morning in my Riverton office, surrounded by fabric swatches and venue catalogs. The sharp ring of the phone sliced through my focus. Carter Wedding Planning, this is Natalie. Miss Carter, this is Eleanor Ashford. I need the best wedding planner in Riverton, and everyone says that's you. I straightened in my chair. The Ashford name carried weight in this city. Old money, society pages. The kind of client who can make or break a career. I'm flattered, Mrs. Ashford. Tell me about your vision. It's not for me, dear. It's for my daughter-in-law. She's marrying my son in 6 months, and we want something spectacular. Money is no object. My heart did a little dance. This was the kind of opportunity I'd been waiting for since starting my business 3 years ago. I'd love to help. What's the bride's name? Clara Hayes. Well, she'd be Clara Ashford soon enough. The name hit me like a physical blow. Clara, common enough name. I told myself couldn't be her. The universe wasn't that cruel. Could you tell me a bit more about what they're looking for? Elegant, romantic, but not stuffy. Clara has exquisite taste. She's an art curator, very sophisticated. My hands started trembling. Art curator, just like she'd always dreamed of becoming. Mrs. Ashford, could I get Clara's contact information? I prefer to work directly with the bride to understand her vision. Of course, let me give you her number. I scribbled down the digits, my handwriting getting shakier with each number. It couldn't be her. Riverton was a big city. There had to be hundreds of Clara Hayes. When would you like to schedule the initial consultation? How about Thursday afternoon, 2 o'clock at the Drake Hotel? Clara suggested the Palm Court. She says it has the right ambiance for planning. The Drake Hotel, where we'd had our first real date, sharing champagne and talking until the staff started stacking chairs around us. That sounds perfect, I managed to say, though my voice sounded foreign to my own ears. Wonderful. Oh, and Natalie, this wedding needs to be perfect. Clara deserves nothing less. After hanging up, I sat in the silence of my office, staring at the phone number. 7 digits that could either launch my career or destroy what little piece I'd managed to build. I thought about Clara constantly for the next 2 days. Not the Clara from my memories, the 22-year-old with paint-stained fingers and wild dreams, but this new version, successful, engaged, moving on with her life while I was still here, helping other people find their happily ever after. Thursday arrived with typical Riverton gloom. I chose my most professional outfit, a navy blazer and pencil skirt that made me feel armored. My reflection in the elevator's polished doors showed a composed businesswoman, not the heartbroken girl who'd cried for months after Clara left. The Palm Court buzzed with afternoon conversation. I arrived 15 minutes early, claiming a corner table with a clear view of the entrance. My portfolio sat open in front of me, though I couldn't focus on the pages. At exactly 2 o'clock, I saw her. Clara Hayes walked through the entrance like she owned the place. Her dark hair shorter now, styled in a sleek bob that framed her face perfectly. She wore a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. And she moved with the confidence of someone who'd found her place in the world. She was more beautiful than I remembered, if that was even possible. Our eyes met across the room, and I watched her face cycle through confusion, recognition, and something that might have been panic. She stopped walking entirely, causing a small traffic jam behind her. For a moment, we just stared at each other across 7 years of silence. Then she straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, and walked toward my table like she was approaching a business meeting, nothing more. Natalie Carter, she said, extending her hand. I should have known. I stood on unsteady legs and shook her hand, trying to ignore the familiar warmth of her skin. Clara, congratulations on your engagement. She sat down across from me, placing her purse carefully on the table between us like a barrier. Thank you. I have to admit, I'm surprised to see you here. I could say the same thing. We sat in awkward silence for a moment, the weight of our history pressing down on the table between us. So I said, opening my portfolio with hands that barely shook. Tell me about your dream wedding. Clara's fingers droomed against her coffee cup. A nervous habit I remembered from college. Some things never changed. Before we start, she said, her voice carefully controlled, I need to know if this is going to be a problem. What do you mean? You know exactly what I mean, Natalie. I straightened my spine, channeling every ounce of professionalism I'd cultivated over the years. I'm a professional, Clara. Your personal history with me won't affect the quality of service you receive. She studied my face, searching for cracks in my composure. Good, because this wedding is important to me, to my family. Of course it is. Every bride deserves perfection on her wedding day. The words tasted bitter, but I forced them out with a smile. Tell me about your fiancé, I said, pen poised over my notepad. What's he like? Clara's expression shifted, becoming softer, more genuine. Actually, she said, and I caught something strange in her voice. I think it would be better if you met both of us together. Would that be possible? Absolutely. When would work for you? How about right now? She's actually waiting outside. The pen slipped from my fingers, clattering onto the table. Clara's cheeks flushed pink. I should have mentioned that earlier. My fiancée is Julia Ashford, Eleanor's daughter. The world tilted sideways. Clara was marrying a woman. Clara, who left me 7 years ago, saying she needed to figure things out and find herself, was marrying a woman. I managed, though I didn't see anything clearly anymore. Is that going to be a problem? No, of course not. I've planned several same-sex weddings. They're always beautiful. Clara nodded and pulled out her phone. I'll text her to come in. While we waited, I tried to process this information. Clara had figured herself out, apparently just not with me. There she is, Clara said, waving toward the entrance. Julia Ashford was everything I wasn't. Tall blonde with the kind of effortless elegance that came from generations of good breeding. She moved through the restaurant like she belonged there, which she probably did. Jules, this is Natalie Carter, the wedding planner I told you about. Julia extended a perfectly manicured hand. Natalie, I've heard wonderful things about your work. Though Clara seemed a bit surprised when she heard your name, I glanced at Clara, who was studying her coffee cup intently. We went to college together, Clara said simply. How wonderful. Old friends planning your wedding. This is going to be so much fun. Julia's enthusiasm was genuine and infectious. I found myself liking her despite everything, which somehow made this whole situation worse. So tell me about your vision, I said, focusing on Julia. What's your dream wedding? Julia's eyes lit up. Something romantic, but not too traditional. We want it to feel like us, you know? Clara has such incredible taste, and I trust her completely. I watched Clara's face as Julia spoke, noting the way her expression softened when she looked at her fiancé. It was the same look she used to give me when she thought I wasn't paying attention. What about you, Clara? What elements are important to you? Clara met my eyes for the first time since Julia arrived. I want something timeless, elegant, but warm, somewhere that feels like home. The word hung between us, loaded with memories of lazy Sunday mornings in our tiny Harborview apartment, of planning our own future together over coffee and stolen kisses. I have some ideas, I said, flipping through my portfolio. What's your budget looking like? Whatever it takes, Julia said. Mother insists on paying for everything, and she wants it to be spectacular. We spent the next hour going through venues, themes, and timelines. I took notes mechanically, my professional autopilot engaged while my heart hammered against my ribs. Clara barely spoke, letting Julia drive most of the conversation. But I felt her watching me, studying my reactions, looking for signs of the girl she used to know. "I think the Riverton Botanic Garden would be perfect for the ceremony," I suggested. "The Rose Garden is stunning in June, and it photographs beautifully." "That sounds amazing," Julia said. "What do you think, Rena?" Rena, the nickname made my chest tight. Only I had called her that back when we were young and stupid and thought love was enough. "It sounds lovely," Clara said quietly. "Perfect. When can we see it?" "I can arrange a tour for next week." "How does Tuesday work?" "Tuesday's great." "Oh, and Natalie, I hope this isn't presumptuous, but would you like to join us for dinner sometime?" I'd love to hear more college stories about Clara. Clara's coffee cup hit the saucer with a sharp clink. "That's very kind," I said carefully. "But I prefer to keep things professional with clients." "Of course, I understand." "Well, we should probably get going. Clara has a gallery opening tonight." They gathered their things, Julia chattering about the wedding while Clara remained silent. "Thank you for meeting with us," Clara said as they prepared to leave. "I'll call you tomorrow to confirm the garden tour." Looking forward to it, I watched them walk away together. Julia's hand resting on the small of Clara's back, in a gesture so familiar it made my stomach clench. Clara looked back once just before they reached the door. Our eyes met for a split second, and I saw something there that looked almost like regret. Then they were gone, leaving me alone with my cold coffee and the wreckage of my carefully constructed composure. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying every moment from the afternoon. Seeing Clara again had unlocked a door I'd spent years keeping sealed shut. I found myself remembering Harborview, our senior year at Emerson College. Clara had been an art history major with dreams of curating exhibitions that would change how people saw the world. I was studying business, practical and focused, already planning the wedding business I'd eventually start. We'd met in a coffee shop near campus. I was cramming for a marketing exam, surrounded by textbooks and empty espresso cups. She was sketching in a worn leather journal, her dark hair falling across her face as she worked. "Excuse me," she'd said, looking up from her drawing. "I know this sounds weird, but would you mind if I sketched you? The light is hitting your face perfectly, and you have this incredibly focused expression." I should have said no. I had an exam the next morning, and I didn't have time for distractions. But something about her voice, the way she tilted her head when she asked, made me nod yes. She drew me for 20 minutes, occasionally glancing up to study my features. When she finished, she turned the journal around to show me. It was beautiful. She captured something in my expression that I'd never seen in mirrors. A kind of quiet determination, a strength I didn't know I possessed. "Keep it," she said, tearing the page out carefully. "Consider it payment for being such a good model." I still had that drawing tucked away in a box I pretended I'd thrown out years ago. We started meeting at that coffee shop regularly. She'd sketch while I studied, and gradually we began talking about art, about dreams, about the futures we were building in our minds. Clara saw beauty everywhere, in the way morning light hit brick buildings, in the expressions of strangers on the subway, and the organized chaos of my study notes spread across the table. She taught me to notice things I'd never paid attention to before. Our first kiss happened on a snowy February night. We'd been walking back from a gallery opening, arguing about whether contemporary art had lost its soul. Clara was passionate in her defense of modern artists, gesturing wildly as she spoke. "You're impossible," I'd said, laughing at her intensity. "And you're beautiful," she'd replied, stopping suddenly in the middle of the sidewalk. Snow was falling around us, catching in her dark hair like tiny stars. She reached up and touched my face, her fingers cold against my cheek. "Can I kiss you?" she whispered. I nodded and she leaned in, pressing her lips to mine with a gentleness that made my knees weak. She tasted like wine and possibility. And in that moment, I knew my life had just changed forever. We were inseparable after that. Clara would spend hours in my tiny apartment painting while I worked on business plans. She critiqued my marketing strategies with the same intensity she brought to analyzing Renaissance masterpieces. "You're going to be amazing," she'd tell me, curled up against my side as we planned our future together. "You're going to help people create the most beautiful days of their lives. What about you?" I'd asked, "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to curate exhibitions that make people fall in love with art all over again." And maybe she'd add, kissing my neck, "I'll curate a life with you." We talked about everything. Marriage, careers, the apartment we'd get together after graduation. Clara wanted to move to New York, where the art world was more vibrant. I was flexible. My business could have worked in any city. But as graduation crept closer, something shifted. Clara started to pull away. She grew quiet, distracted. Sometimes she'd stare out the window in the middle of our conversations, her thoughts somewhere far beyond my reach. "What's wrong?" I'd ask. She'd just shake her head and paste on a smile. "Nothing, just nervous about the future, I guess." The end came 2 weeks before graduation. Clara showed up at my apartment with red, swollen eyes and a suitcase in her hand. "I can't do this anymore," she said, skipping any kind of introduction. "Do what?" "What are you talking about?" "This us?" "I need to figure out who I am without you." The words landed like a series of punches. "I don't understand," I said, my voice thin. "I thought we were happy." "We are. That's the problem." She dropped down onto my couch, the same couch where, just days earlier, we'd been sketching out our future together. "I've never been alone, Natalie," she said quietly. "I went from my parents' house to college to this. I don't know who I am when I'm not part of a couple. So we'll figure it out together," I insisted. "That's what people do when they love each other." "I do love you," she whispered. "That's why I have to go." She left that night, taking only what she could fit in that suitcase. The next morning, I found her engagement ring, the simple silver band I'd given her for Christmas, sitting on my nightstand. Beside it was a note with just 2 words. "I'm sorry." I didn't see her at graduation. Her parents told me she'd gone to Europe, enrolled in some art program in Florence. For months after, I waited for a call, an email, a letter. Some sign that what we'd shared had meant something. That I hadn't imagined it all. She never reached out. Now, lying in my Riverdale bedroom 7 years later, I wondered if she'd ever found whatever it was she'd been searching for. If Julia Ashford was the person Clara had become once she figured out who she was without me, the thought should have felt like closure. Instead, it only made the hollow ache in my chest spread deeper. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from an unknown number. "It's Clara. Thank you for being professional today." I know this can't be easy. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, just doing my job. Her response came immediately. "I know you always were good at that." I turned off my phone and pulled the covers over my head, but sleep still wouldn't come. The Riverdale Botanic Garden tour was scheduled for 10 a.m. on a Tuesday that dawned crisp and clear. I arrived early, needing time to compose myself before facing Clara again. The rose garden was at its peak. Hundreds of blooms creating a tapestry of color and fragrance. It was the kind of setting that made even the most cynical person believe in love. Perfect for a wedding. Perfect for breaking my heart all over again. "Natalie," Julia's voice carried across the garden. She approached with her usual enthusiasm, Clara trailing behind her like a reluctant shadow. "This place is incredible," Julia continued, spinning around to take in the view. "Clara, look at those climbing roses. They'd be perfect for the ceremony backdrop." Clara nodded, but her attention was focused on me. "Good morning, Natalie." "Morning." I thought we'd start with the ceremony site and work our way through the reception options. I led them down the main path, pointing out features and possibilities while trying to ignore the way Clara's presence seemed to charge the air around me. "The Rose Garden can accommodate up to 150 guests for the ceremony," I explained, stopping at the central gazebo. "We'd positioned the altar here with seating arranged in a semicircle." Julia was taking pictures with her phone, already envisioning the day. "What do you think about timing?" Late afternoon for the ceremony. Golden hour would be beautiful, I agreed. Around 4 o'clock, depending on the exact date. June 15th, Clara said quietly. It was the first time she'd spoken since we arrived. I made a note, trying not to think about the significance of the date. June 15th had been our anniversary, the day we'd first kissed in that snowy Harborview street. Perfect timing for roses, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil in my chest. We moved through the garden, discussing logistics and possibilities. Julia asked a million questions, her excitement infectious. Clara remained mostly silent, occasionally offering input when directly asked. What about photos? Julia asked as we approached a secluded grove. This spot is gorgeous. It's one of my favorite locations for portraits, I said. The light filtering through the trees creates a natural softbox effect. Clara stepped into the grove, running her fingers along the bark of an old oak tree. It's peaceful here. You always loved quiet spaces, I said before I could stop myself. Our eyes met, and for a moment the years fell away. I could see the girl who used to find hidden corners in museums, who dragged me to empty parks just to sit and observe the world. Some things don't change, she said softly. Julia appeared beside us, oblivious to the undercurrent of tension. This is definitely where we want to do our couple's portraits, right, Rena? The nickname still made me flinch. Clara noticed, her expression flickering with something that might have been regret. Yes, it's lovely. We continued the tour, visiting the reception pavilion and discussing catering options. I maintained my professional demeanor, but I could feel Clara watching me, studying my reactions. I think we've seen enough for today, Julia said finally. This place is perfect. When can we book it? I'll call them this afternoon and get the contract started. Wonderful. I have to run to a meeting, but Clara can handle any remaining details. Right, babe? Clara's smile looked forced. Of course, Julia kissed Clara's cheek and hurried off, leaving us alone among the roses. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words. She seems lovely, I said finally. She is Julia's. She's everything I should want. The phrasing was odd, but I didn't push. How long have you been together? 2 years. We met at a gallery opening. She was there with her mother and I was curating the exhibition. So, you made it the curator thing. Claire's smile was genuine for the first time all day. I did. I work for the Art Institute now. It's everything I dreamed it would be. I'm glad. You deserve to have your dreams come true. We started walking back toward the parking area, our steps slow and measured. What about you? Clara asked. Are you happy with your business? I mean, I am. It's challenging but rewarding. I get to help people create perfect moments, even when your own perfect moment got away. The question hung in the air between us. I stopped walking, turning to face her. Clara, what are we doing here? I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. This tension, these loaded conversations. If you want me to plan your wedding, we need to establish some boundaries. She went quiet for a long moment, fingers worrying the engagement ring on her left hand. You're right. I'm sorry. This is just harder than I expected. Then maybe you should find another planner. No, the word came out sharper than I meant it to. I don't want to do that. You're the best in the city, and Julia's heart is set on working with you. And what about your heart, Clara? What's that set on? The question slipped out before I could reel it back. Clara's eyes widened, and I watched a tiny fracture appear in her carefully maintained composure. My heart doesn't get a vote anymore, she said softly. I made my choice a long time ago. And you're happy with that choice. She looked away, gaze fixing on a climbing rose that had wrapped itself around a nearby trellis. Happiness is complicated, Natalie. You know that? It doesn't have to be, does it? Look at us standing here pretending we're strangers when we both know. She let the sentence trail off, shaking her head. Know what? Nothing. Forget I said anything. She started walking again, her pace quicker now. I caught up to her at the parking lot. Clara, wait. She turned and I saw tears glinting at the corners of her eyes. I should go. Julia's expecting me for lunch. Of course she is. Clara paused with her hand on the car door. Natalie. Yeah? Thank you for being professional about this. I know it can't be easy. You keep saying that like you know how I feel. Don't I? The question hung between us as she got into her car and drove away, leaving me alone in the parking lot with the scent of roses and the weight of everything we hadn't said. 3 weeks later, we were buried in wedding planning. I'd thrown myself into the details with an intensity that bordered on obsession, anything to keep from thinking about the way. Clara's voice softened when she said my name, or how she still tucked her hair behind her left ear when she was nervous. The rehearsal was set for a Thursday evening at the Botanic Garden. The forecast had promised clear skies, but Riverdon had other ideas. By 5 o'clock, the rain was coming down in steady sheets, turning our outdoor rehearsal into an indoor scramble. The pavilion will work fine, I assured Julia over the phone. We'll just run through the ceremony logistics inside. Are you sure? Clara's been so stressed about everything being perfect. I glanced across the pavilion where Clara stood by the windows, watching the rain with an unreadable expression. Everything will be beautiful, Julia, trust me. The wedding party arrived in dribs and drabs, shaking off umbrellas and laughing about the weather. Julia's family was exactly what I'd expected: polished, wealthy, utterly at ease. Clara's side was smaller, more eclectic. Her parents had flown in from Harborview along with her sister and a few close friends. Natalie Carter, Clara's mother, said, approaching me with a warm smile, I remember you from college. How wonderful that you're planning Clara's wedding, Mrs. Hayes' kindness made my chest tight. She'd always treated me like family during those college years, insisting I call her Helen, and including me in holiday celebrations. It's good to see you again, Mrs. Hayes. Helen, please. You know, Clara mentioned you'd become a wedding planner. I always thought you'd be wonderful at it. You were so organized, even in college. I smiled, remembering how Clara used to tease me about my color-coded study schedules and meticulously planned dates. Thank you. That means a lot. She was heartbroken when you two lost touch. Helen continued, lowering her voice. I always hoped you'd reconnect someday. Before I could respond, Julia clapped her hands together, calling for attention. Okay, everyone. Natalie's going to walk us through the ceremony. I launched into my rehearsal routine, positioning family members and explaining the processional order. Clara stood with the wedding party, but I could feel her watching me as I worked. Clara, you'll enter last, I explained, walking down the center aisle to meet Julia at the altar. What about music? Asked Julia's mother. We should practice with the actual songs. The string quartet couldn't make it tonight because of the rain, I said. We'll just walk through the timing, but Julia had already pulled out her phone, connecting it to a portable speaker she'd brought. The opening notes of Helbel's canon filled the pavilion. Perfect. Let's do a full run-through. I positioned myself at the back of the space, watching as the wedding party processed down the makeshift aisle. Julia's bridesmaids moved with practiced grace, followed by Clara's more bohemian friends. Then Julia appeared, radiant in jeans and a sweater, practicing her bridal walk. She moved with confidence, smiling at her family and friends as she made her way toward the altar. Finally, it was Clara's turn. She stepped into position at the back of the pavilion, and something shifted in the atmosphere. Even in casual clothes, even at a simple rehearsal, she commanded attention. She moved down the aisle with a grace that took my breath away, her eyes fixed on Julia, waiting at the altar. But halfway down the aisle, her gaze found mine. Time seemed to slow. The music continued, but all I could hear was my own heartbeat. Clara's steps faltered slightly, and I saw something raw and vulnerable cross her face before she looked away, focusing on Julia again. Beautiful, Julia's mother called out as Clara reached the altar. Now let's practice the vows. Actually, the officiant said, I'd like to run through the ring exchange first. I watched from the back as they went through the motions, Clara and Julia facing each other, speaking words of love and commitment. It should have felt final seeing them together like this. Instead, it felt like watching a performance where one of the actors had forgotten their lines. "Perfect," I said when they finished. "I think we're all set for Saturday." The group began to disperse, people heading to their cars through the rain. I was packing up my notes when Clara approached. "Natalie, could I talk to you for a minute?" I looked around. Julia was saying goodbye to her parents, and most of the wedding party had already left. "Sure, what's on your mind?" Claire glanced toward the windows where rain was still streaming down the glass. "I wanted to thank you for everything. I know this hasn't been easy. You keep saying that because it's true. And because I need you to know that I appreciate how professional you've been. It's my job, Clara. Is it? Is it just a job?" The question hung between us, loaded with 7 years of unspoken words. "What do you want me to say?" "I don't know. Maybe I want you to tell me this is as hard for you as it is for me." I sat down my clipboard, really looking at her for the first time all evening. Why? What difference would that make? "I don't know. Maybe it would make me feel less crazy." "Crazy how?" Clara ran her hands through her hair, a gesture I remembered from college when she was struggling with a difficult concept. "I keep thinking about Harborview, about us, about the way you used to look at me like I was the most important thing in your world." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Clara, I know I don't have the right to say this. I know I gave up that right when I left, but seeing you again, working with you, it's bringing back everything I thought I'd buried. You're getting married in 3 days. I know, to someone who loves you. I know that too." "Then what are you saying?" Clara stepped closer. Close enough that I could smell her perfume. Something different from what she used to wear. More sophisticated, more expensive. "I'm saying that I made a mistake 7 years ago. A huge life-altering mistake. Clara, don't. I thought I needed to find myself. But all I did was lose the best thing that ever happened to me. Stop. You can't say these things to me. Not now." "When then? After the wedding?" "After I've committed." "My life to someone else?" "You already have committed your life to someone else?" "You're wearing her ring." Clara looked down at the diamond on her finger like she'd forgotten it was there. "I know. And Julia is wonderful. She's everything I should want. She's stable, successful, comes from a good family. She makes sense. And I didn't. You made too much sense. You were everything I wanted, and everything I was afraid of wanting." Thunder rumbled overhead, and the rain intensified against the windows. "I should go," I said, reaching for my bag. "Natalie, wait." "No, Clara, I can't do this." "I won't be the other woman in your story." "That's not what I'm asking, isn't it? What exactly are you asking?" Clara was quiet for a long moment, tears mixing with the rain sounds around us. "I don't know," she whispered. "I just know that in 3 days, I'm going to marry someone else. And I'll spend the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if I'd been brave enough to fight for us. You had 7 years to be brave, Clara. 7 years to pick up the phone, to write a letter, to show up at my door. You chose not to?" "I was scared." "Of what?" "Of this. Of feeling like I can't breathe when you're not around. Of needing someone so much it terrifies me." I stared at her, seeing the girl I'd fallen in love with underneath the polished exterior. "It's too late," I said finally. "Is it?" Before I could answer, Julia's voice echoed across the pavilion. "Is he? Are you ready to go?" Clara stepped back, wiping her eyes quickly. "Coming," she called back, then looked at me one more time. "I'm sorry, Natalie, for everything." She walked away, leaving me standing alone in the empty pavilion with the sound of rain and the echo of words that had come 7 years too late. I didn't sleep that night or the next. By Friday evening, I was running on caffeine and sheer determination, making final preparations for a wedding I wasn't sure I could watch happen. The flowers had been delivered, the cake was perfect, and every detail was in place. All that remained was getting through the next 24 hours without falling apart. I was in my office going over the timeline one final time when my phone rang. "Natalie, it's Julia." Her voice sounded strange, tight, strained. Hi, Julia. Is everything okay? Do you need anything for tomorrow? Actually, I need to talk to you. Could you meet me somewhere tonight? Something in her tone made my stomach clench. Of course. Where? The Drake Hotel? The Palm Court? I know it's where you and Clara first met to discuss the wedding. My blood ran cold. Julia, what's going on? Just please, can you be there in an hour? I found Julia sitting at the same table where Clara and I had our first consultation. She looked smaller somehow, her usual confidence replaced by something fragile. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat down. Julia, you're scaring me. What's wrong? She was quiet for a moment, staring at her hands folded on the table. Clara told me, she said finally. Told you what about you two? About college? About what happened at the rehearsal? My heart stopped. Julia, I can explain. Can you explain why my fiancé is in love with someone else? The words hit me like a physical blow. She said that she didn't have to. I've known something was wrong for weeks. The way she looks at you, the way she gets quiet whenever your name comes up. I'm not stupid, Natalie. I didn't know what to say. There was no defense for what had happened. No way to minimize the damage. I'm sorry, I said finally. I never meant for any of this to happen. I know. That's what makes it worse somehow. If you'd been trying to steal her away, I could hate you. But you've been nothing but professional. Julia signaled the waiter for another drink, her hands shaking slightly. Do you love her? She asked. The question hung between us. I could try to protect what was left of their relationship. But Julia deserved the truth. Yes, I said quietly. I never stopped. She nodded like she'd expected that answer. She loves you too? You know that, right, Julia? No, let me finish. Clara loves you in a way she'll never love me. I have known it for months, maybe longer. I just kept hoping it would change. What are you going to do? Julia was quiet for a long time, staring out the window at the Riverton skyline. I'm going to let her go, she said finally. What? I'm calling off the wedding. No, you can't do that. Think about your family, the guests, everything that's been planned. I can't marry someone who's in love with someone else. Natalie, I won't do that to any of us. But Clara chose you. She's here. She's wearing your ring because she thinks it's the right thing to do. Because she's trying to be the person she thinks she should be instead of who she really is. Julia pulled off her engagement ring, setting it on the table between us. I love Clara enough to want her to be happy, even if it's not with me. Where is she now? At home packing for our honeymoon? She doesn't know I'm here. Natalie, Julia, please think about this. Don't make a decision you'll regret. The only thing I'd regret, she said, is trapping someone in a marriage built on obligation instead of love. She stood, placing money on the table to cover her drink. Take care of her, Natalie. She's going to need you. Wait, I blurted. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to figure this out? You two have wasted enough time already. And then she walked away, leaving me alone with the engagement ring and the weight of everything that had just unfolded. I sat there for a long time, staring at the diamond catching the soft glow of the restaurant lights. Tomorrow, 150 guests would show up at the Botanic Garden expecting a wedding. Vendors would arrive to set up. The flowers would be delivered and arranged. Somewhere, a bride would be getting ready for a ceremony that wasn't going to happen anymore. My phone buzzed. A text from Clara. Can't sleep. Keep thinking about tomorrow and about what I said at the rehearsal. I'm sorry if I made things complicated. I stared at the screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. What was I supposed to tell her? That her fiancé had just canceled their wedding? That everything in her life was about to shift? Instead, I typed, "Where are you right now?" At home, Julia went out to meet a friend. Why? I'm coming over. Natalie, that's not a good idea. We needed to talk. What's your address? She sent it after a pause, followed by, "Are you sure about this?" I wasn't sure about anything anymore. But I grabbed my keys, left the restaurant, and drove through the Riverton night toward whatever waited for us next. Clara's apartment was in Lincoln Park, a converted brownstone with ivy trailing up the front facade. I stood on her doorstep for a full minute, trying to study my breathing before finally pressing the doorbell. She answered in pajama pants and an old college sweatshirt, her hair pulled back into a messy bun. She looked younger like that, unguarded, fragile, impossibly beautiful. "Natalie, what's wrong?" "You look like you've seen a ghost. Can I come in?" She stepped aside and I walked into her living room. It was exactly what I'd imagined. Eclectic art covering the walls. Stacks of books everywhere, that familiar organized chaos that had always been so distinctly Clara. "Do you want some tea?" "Coffee?" she asked. "Clara, sit down." Something in my tone made her go still. "What's going on?" "Julia came to see me tonight." All the color drained from her face. What did she say she knows about us, about college, about what happened at the rehearsal? Clara sank onto her couch, her hands covering her face. "Oh, God, what did you tell her?" "The truth. That I love you. That I never stopped loving you." Clara looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "Natalie, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen." She called off the wedding. The words hung in the air between us. Clara stared at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. "What?" she called off. "She said she won't marry someone who's in love with someone else." Clara stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. No, she can't do that. The guests, the venue, her family. She doesn't care about any of that. I have to call her. I have to fix this. "Clara, stop." She turned to face me, her expression wild. "I can't let her do this. I can't let her sacrifice everything because I'm a coward. What if she's right? What if you are in love with someone else? That doesn't matter, doesn't it?" I stepped closer, close enough to see the tears on her cheeks. "Clara, look at me. Really, look at me. Are you in love with Julia?" "I care about her. I respect her." That's not what I asked." Clara was quiet for a long moment, her eyes searching my face. "No," she whispered. "I'm not in love with Julia." "Then who are you in love with?" "You know the answer to that. I need to hear you say it." Clara took a shaky breath. "I'm in love with you, Natalie. I've been in love with you for 7 years, even when I was trying not to be." The confession hung between us, raw and honest and 7 years overdue. "Then why did you leave? Why did you put us both through this? Because I was 22 and terrified and stupid? Because I thought love was supposed to be easy, and what we had was so intense it scared me. And now I know that easy isn't the same as right. And I know that I've spent 7 years trying to find something that felt like what we had, and nothing ever came close." I reached out, touching her face gently. "So, what do we do now?" "I don't know. I've made such a mess of everything. We'll figure it out together. Natalie, I hurt you. I left you. How can you even stand to look at me? Because I love you. Because some things are worth fighting for, even when it's complicated." Clara leaned into my touch, closing her eyes. "I don't deserve you. That's not your decision to make." She opened her eyes, and I saw hope there for the first time in weeks. "What happens now? Now we start over. We take it slow. We figure out who we are now. And we see if what we had can become something even better. And the wedding. We'll deal with that tomorrow. Tonight, it's just us." Clara nodded, tears still falling, but her expression lighter than I'd seen it since that first day at the Drake Hotel. "I love you, Natalie Carter." "I love you too, Clara Hayes." She kissed me then, soft and tentative and full of promise. It tasted like coming home. 6 months later, the morning sun streamed through the windows of my apartment as I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the simple white dress I'd chosen for today. My hands were shaking. Not from nerves, but from excitement. "You look beautiful," Clara said from the doorway, already dressed in her own cream gown. We're not supposed to see each other before the ceremony, I said, but I was smiling. Since when do we follow traditional rules? She was right. Nothing about our story had been traditional. The past 6 months had been a journey of rediscovery. After the wedding that never happened, Clara and I had taken things slowly. We'd gone to counseling both together and separately, working through the hurt and fear that had kept us apart for 7 years. Julia had been gracious about everything, even helping us navigate the aftermath of the canceled wedding. She'd found love herself with someone from her art history graduate program, and we all managed to become friends of sorts. Are you ready for this? Clara asked, stepping into the room. I've been ready for 7 years. Today's ceremony would be nothing like the elaborate affair I'd planned for Clara and Julia. We'd chosen a small garden behind a bed and breakfast in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Just our families, a few close friends, and the officiant who'd married my parents 30 years ago. The car's here, Clara said, checking her phone. We rode to the venue together, our hands intertwined, watching the Wisconsin countryside roll past the windows. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd done this 7 years ago? Clara asked. Sometimes, but I think we needed those years apart. We needed to become who we are now. Who are we now? I considered the question. We're two people who know what it's like to lose each other, who won't take this for granted. The bed and breakfast was a Victorian house surrounded by gardens that rivaled anything I'd ever planned for clients. Our families were already there mingling on the back lawn. Natalie, my mother rushed over, enveloping me in a hug. You look radiant. Thanks, Mom. I'm so happy for you both. I always hoped you'd find your way back to each other. Clara's parents were equally warm, treating me like the daughter they'd always considered me to be. 5 minutes. The officiant announced. Clara and I took our positions at opposite ends of the garden. Unlike traditional ceremonies, we decided to walk toward each other, meeting in the middle. The string quartet, the same one that had been scheduled for the canceled wedding, began playing. Not Pell Bell's Canon this time, but At Last by James, the song that had been playing in that Harborview coffee shop the first time Clara sketched me. I started walking, my eyes fixed on Clara as she moved toward me from the other side of the garden. She was more beautiful than ever, her face radiant with joy and certainty. We met in the center under an arch of climbing roses that reminded me of our first venue tour. Hi, she whispered. Hi yourself. The officiant began the ceremony, but I barely heard the words. I was lost in Clara's eyes and the promise of the future we were finally brave enough to claim. Do you, Natalie, take Clara to be your wife, to love and cherish in sickness and health? For richer or poorer, for better or worse, for as long as you both shall live, I do. I absolutely do. And do you, Clara, take Natalie to be your wife, to love and cherish, in sickness and health, for richer or poorer, for better or worse, for as long as you both shall live? I do. I've been waiting 7 years to say that. We exchanged rings, simple gold bands that we'd chosen together, inscribed with the date of our first kiss in Harborview. By the power vested in me by the state of Wisconsin, I now pronounce you married. You may kiss your bride. Clara caught my face in her hands, her thumb brushing away a tear I didn't realize had fallen. I love you, Mrs. Carter Hayes. I love you too, Mrs. Carter Hayes. She kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. Our families cheered, and somewhere in the distance, I heard the sound of camera shutters clicking. The reception was held in the garden with tables scattered under string lights and paper lanterns. Clara had insisted on doing the flowers herself, wildflowers and garden roses arranged in mason jars, simple and perfect. Speech, speech, someone called as we finished cutting the cake. Clara and I shared a look, and she gave a small nod. Thank you all for being here, I began, my voice carrying across the garden. 7 years ago, Clara and I thought we understood what love was. We believed it was supposed to be easy, uncomplicated, free of fear and doubt. We were wrong. Clara squeezed my hand and continued, Love isn't easy. It's brave. It's choosing each other every single day, even when it's scary. We lost each other for a while, I said. But we found our way back. And now we know that some love stories don't move in straight lines. Sometimes they wander. Sometimes they break. Sometimes they go missing for years. But if they're meant to be, they find their way home to second chances. Clara lifted her glass. To coming home. And, I added, raising mine, to love that's worth waiting for. Our families echoed the toast in a warm chorus. As the evening faded and the guests drifted away, Clara and I ended up alone in the garden, swaying slowly to music only we could hear. No regrets? She asked softly. Only one. What's that? That we waited so long to get here. Clara smiled and spun me gently under the stars. We're here now. That's what matters. What happens next? I asked. Next, we go on our honeymoon to Italy. Then we come home and figure out how to turn 2 lives into one. And after that, we live happily ever after. I laughed, pulling her closer. You make it sound so simple. Maybe it is, she said. Maybe we just overthought it before. Maybe we did. As we moved together in our garden, surrounded by the echoes of laughter and the scent of roses, I thought about all the weddings I'd planned over the years, all the couples I'd helped create their perfect day. I always wondered what my own wedding would feel like. Now I knew it felt like coming home. Thank you, Clara whispered against my ear. For what? For not giving up on us. For believing we could find our way back. For being brave enough to try. I love you, Natalie Carter Hayes. I love you too, Clara Carter Hayes. Above us, the stars turned slowly, and somewhere in the distance, we could still hear our families laughing and celebrating. Tomorrow, we'd begin our new life together. Tonight, we danced in a garden full of roses, finally home where we were always meant to be. And if you're watching this and you believe in second chances, and love that finds its way back, please subscribe to our channel and share your own love story in the comments. Because sometimes the best endings are really just new beginnings. If you told me a year ago that my favorite part of being married would be the quiet mornings, I would have laughed. Back then, I thought it would be the big moments that defined us, the wedding under the roses in Wisconsin, the honeymoon in Italy, our first Christmas as the Bennett Moores. Those are the photos you frame, the memories people ask about. But the life that came after? That's built out of smaller things. Like this morning, I was standing in our Riverton kitchen, barefoot on the cool tile, trying not to burn the pancakes. Outside, February rattled the windows with sleet. Inside, the apartment smelled like coffee, maple syrup, and wet paint. Your pancakes are smoking, Marina said behind me. They're rustic, I said, snatching the pan off the burner. Artisanal, charcoal-infused. She leaned against the counter in one of my oversized t-shirts, dark hair twisted into a messy knot, a streak of ultramarine paint on her forearm. There was a smudge of it on her cheek, too. I reached out and wiped it away with my thumb. You're still doing that, she murmured. What? Looking at me like you're afraid I'll vanish if you blink. I smiled because she wasn't wrong. Some mornings I still woke up and took inventory. Her ring on the nightstand, her curls on the pillow, her sketchbook open on the armchair. Proof this wasn't a dream I'd invented on a lonely night. Proof the woman sipping coffee at my counter was not getting ready to walk down an aisle towards someone else. I'm allowed to be sentimental before caffeine, I said. House rule. She stepped closer and kissed me, slow and sure, the kind of kiss that said we had time now. Time we hadn't had in Harborview. Time we'd wasted in 7 years of silence. Sentimental is fine, she said against my mouth. Burnt pancakes are not. We have a meeting in an hour. Right, the meeting. I slid the least scorched pancakes onto plates while she refilled our coffee mugs. On the kitchen table, my laptop was open to a spreadsheet labeled Bennett and More Events Q3 6 months after our wedding. I'd rebranded the business. The new logo, clean, simple, both of our names side by side, still made my chest warm. After years of building everything alone, it felt strange and right to see more under Bennett on my invoices. Marina dropped into the chair across from me, folding one leg beneath her. So, she said, nodding toward the screen, Have you decided? The email sitting open on my laptop might as well have been glowing. Subject: Proposal, Florence Destination Weddings. A boutique planning company in Italy had seen photos from our Lake Geneva ceremony online. They wanted a Riverton-based planner to partner with them on a series of weddings in Florence and Tuscany. 6 months of work. A huge step for my business. And Florence. The city Marina had run to when she left me. The city where, for years, I imagined her learning how to live without us. I don't know yet, I admitted. It's a lot. I'd have to be there for months. You've got the museum, your exhibitions. Our lives are here. I didn't say the quieter fear that if I left, I might come back to find something broken. That the universe might decide we'd used up all our chances. Marina's expression softened, the way it did now when she recognized the old panic sneaking in. Hey, she said, reaching for my hand. Remember our rule? Don't schedule clients before 10 a.m. on Mondays? I tried. She snorted. The other one. Our therapist would have been proud of her patience. We kept going to counseling after the wedding, not because we were falling apart, but because we didn't want to repeat history. We'd already seen what avoiding hard conversations cost us. Right, I said quietly. No big decisions made out of fear. She squeezed my fingers. If you don't want to go because it's not the right fit, that's one thing, she said. But if you're only saying no because you're scared, that's not us anymore. I studied her. She was still Marina passionate, impulsive, mouthy about art, but there was a steadiness now, too. A willingness to stay in the room instead of running when things got hard. What if long distance is too much? I asked. What if we drift? Then we talk about it before we drift, she said simply. We adjust. I visit. You come home when you need to. We figure it out together. I didn't fight my way back to you just to lose you to a time zone. The old defensive part of me wanted to argue, to say that Florence had already taken enough from me, that I didn't owe it anything. But another part quieter, wiser knew that if I turned this down for the wrong reasons, I'd resent it, and maybe eventually resent us. My phone buzzed on the table, breaking the silence. Clara. Her name still did something complicated to my chest, though not the sharp, guilty lurch it used to. More like a tug at an old scar that had healed, but never fully disappeared. I showed Marina the text. Running late for tonight. Tell Rena I'm bringing champagne fancy enough to make your planner heart forgive my tardiness. Tonight was the Whitmore fundraiser at the Art Institute, curated by one Dr. Marina Moore Bennett. 300 guests, 2 bar setups, and a floral installation that had made the florist threaten to retire. You know, half the board still thinks you're secretly related to them, I said. That's because your mother uses the Wisconsin photos as her lock screen, Marina said. No one knows whose last name I actually have. You have mine, I reminded her. Her gaze softened again. I know, she said quietly. I like having it. We ate in comfortable silence for a minute, the Florence email hovering between us like a third-place setting. Do you ever regret it? She asked suddenly. Regret what? Taking my name, too. Changing your business. Making all of this so official. There was a time when a question like that would have sent me spiraling. Now I took a breath and answered. No, I said. I don't regret it. Some days it still scares me. Being this all in. Loving you this much again. Knowing what it felt like when you left. But no, I don't regret it. Her thumb brushed over my knuckles. Me neither, she said. Sometimes I wake up and think, what did I do tying my whole life to this woman who color codes her sock drawer? I do not color code my sock drawer, I said automatically. You used to, she countered. Okay, I did once, in grad school, and it was a system, not a lifestyle. She laughed, the tension in the room loosening. That's the thing, isn't it? She said. We know exactly what we're risking this time. We're not pretending love is effortless. We're choosing it anyway. Her words settled somewhere deep inside me. I think I want to go, I heard myself say. Her eyes widened, then warmed. To Florence? Yeah, I said. I want to go because I want to, not because I'm trying to prove anything. Not to you, not to 22-year-old me, not to the universe. Just because it's my dream. A slow smile spread across her face. Then go, she said. We'll make it work. I fully intend to abuse your hotel points, by the way. Someone has to eat gelato with you in morally irresponsible quantities. Purely a supportive spouse move, I said. Obviously. Florence wasn't the enemy I had built it up to be. It was golden stone and narrow streets and brides laughing in nervous Italian. It was long days of vendor meetings and late-night emails sent from tiny hotel desks. It was jet lag and new venues and the quiet pride of watching my business logo on printed programs in another country. Marina couldn't move there with me. Her curator contract at the Art Institute wasn't exactly portable, but she carved out time in her schedule. A week here, a long weekend there. We collected new memories in the places where her old ones lived. This is where I almost called you and chickened out, she said one evening, pointing to a stone bench by the river. I sat there with your number pulled up for 20 straight minutes. Another night, that balcony? I once promised myself I'd never need anyone again while I cried into a very mediocre glass of wine. 10 out of 10 would not recommend. We turned our ghosts into our inside jokes. The streets that used to feel like proof of how far apart we'd been became little markers of how far we'd come. On my last night before flying home for good, we stood at a quiet overlook. The city spread beneath us. The Duomo glowed softly. The river held the last light of the day. Do you ever think about the girl you were here? I asked. All the time, she said. She thought leaving you was the bravest thing she'd ever done. And now? Now I know the bravest thing I'll ever do is stay, she said. Stay when it's scary. Stay when my brain starts whispering that I don't deserve nice things. Stay and keep choosing the same person even when it means admitting I was wrong. She slid her hand into mine. Especially when it means admitting I was wrong, she added. The breeze lifted a curl off her forehead. I smoothed it back. I'm glad she made it this far, I said. That girl on the bench. I'm glad you did, she replied. You could have closed that door for good. I thought I had, I admitted. Turns out, some doors creak back open if you're willing to do the work on the hinges. She laughed, the sound echoing off old stone. Sometimes viewers ask what happened after the canceled wedding, after the late-night confession, after the rose-covered arch in Wisconsin. They want the plot points, promotions, moves, babies, disasters. They want to know if there was a twist they missed. Here's the truth. The epilogue of a love story is mostly ordinary days. We came home from Florence. My business grew. Marina's career at the museum took off more exhibitions, more late nights, more articles with our name in neat serif font. We still go to therapy when we start slipping into old patterns. We still argue sometimes about money, about holidays, about the fact that she insists on leaving paintbrushes in the bathroom sink like some kind of monster. Sometimes we talk about kids. Adoption, IVF, foster care. We haven't decided yet. But we say the word we a lot in those conversations, and that feels like something. Whatever happens, she said one night, curled against me on the couch, they're not getting a hyphenated last name. I refused to inflict that on a kindergarten teacher. Agreed, I said. We want the teachers to like them. We laughed until we cried, which is something we do more now, laugh and cry at the same time. It feels honest. This isn't the neat happily ever after I thought I'd get when I was 21, sitting in a coffee shop while a girl with paint on her hands sketched my face. It's not the picture-perfect society marriage Marina almost walked into, either. It's messier than that. Louder, softer, realer. If you're watching this wondering whether second chances exist, whether people can actually change, whether love can survive fear and distance and bad timing, here is the only answer I can give you. We are not the people we were 7 years ago. Thank God we've hurt each other and healed. We've learned that apologies are beginnings, not endings. We've learned to say, I'm scared, instead of, I'm fine. We've learned that choosing each other on a boring Tuesday matters, more than swearing forever in front of 150 guests. We didn't get the straight, smooth path. We got detours and dead ends and one spectacularly public, almost wedding. We got lost. And then we found our way back. This morning, as I finished this recording, Marina's humming off key in the next room, working on a new exhibition proposal. There's coffee on the table, paint on the counter, and a plane ticket to Florence, pinned to our fridge as a reminder that we are allowed to chase big lives and still come home to each other. It doesn't look like the movies. It looks like burnt pancakes and shared calendars and holding hands in airport security lines. It looks like a woman who once left learning, every day, how to stay. It looks like a life I never thought I'd get back. It looks like home.